Hey, so I'm back with you again, and we're still talking about vision here. And I'm going to get deeper into my vision. And with that, I'm a little bit afraid to voice my vision because I- I'm, I'm a little bit afraid. I'm going to just be open and honest with you. I'm a little bit afraid of what people are going to think. And I shouldn't be. So with that, I'm going to move forward and I'm going to crush that fear. And so here goes. When I was 16, I took a trip to Ukraine for 3 months. My grandmother's from Ukraine. All my family on my grandma's side, they're all from Ukraine. And they kind of lost touch, and I have like very distant cousins there, but I grew up some with the Ukrainian language, and my grandmother always, for the holidays, she always cooked Ukrainian food. And she always instilled the Ukrainian background into her children and her grandchildren. And it meant a lot to me because one thing my grandma used to always tell me is God is good, And if you can identify with me and your grandparents, there's always one thing that they tell you or that they kind of demonstrate to you that points out to you. And, my grandmother lived through a lot. She was 89 and she passed away. And that was just in August. And, she used to always say to me, she used to always say to me, honey, God is good all the time. And she said, look at me. I'm so happy. Look at how much I have. And if you would have seen my grandmother, she had like a 2-room apartment. That's all she had. She had this little house that she sold, and she moved into a 2-room apartment. And she had really nothing to her name. And it wasn't that she didn't want more, but she was old, and was so happy. Literally, like, my grandmother would just resonate with happiness. And one thing she would always do when we would go see her, she would always send us away with something. She was always giving to others. I remember precisely one of the older ladies that lived in her apartment area, a complex, had stolen money from her, and my grandmother passed away and never once said a thing to that lady because she said, no, she said she must have needed it more than me. And the value that I took from my grandmother's life is so incredible, and I don't even know how to put words to it. And so that leads back to this vision that I have. So I was 16, and I went to Ukraine on a kids club. Basically, I was there to help support with an organization some outreach to kids, and we did kids clubs in different villages. We worked with a couple orphanages, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. So the next summer, I go back again, right? I'm 17, and I go back again. Same thing. I absolutely loved it, right? And actually, in between that time, I went in the winter time, too, for 1 month. And my best friend, Oksana, she lives there, and now her husband and 2 boys live there, and we speak all the time. And I think, from one trip, I have so many contacts and people that I talk to. Kids that are now adults. Kids who have stayed in touch with me and traveled with me and I with them for the last 10 years. I took my daughter and we went over there 2 years ago, or in 2012, we traveled to Ukraine and spent a couple weeks there with my good friend Oksana and traveled seeing some of the kids that she and I had helped develop, and come out maybe of their shell. And, I noticed such a need for just people who really had a heart, people who had a compassion, If you know anything about, like, America's a great place to live, there's people here that need help too, but if you know anything about other countries, they're not, some of the kids that I worked with, They didn't even have beds to sleep in. Some of them couldn't go home. They would find places to sleep. And that, when you work with kids like that and it touches your heart and you say, I want to be able to help them, you know, in the situation I was in at that time, I wasn't able to go and help them and reach out to them. And so I have this little vision where I would be able to work from my computer, provided I have internet connection. I can work from anywhere in the world, right? And I would love to open up simply a big house, or whatever you want to call it, over in Ukraine, where kids could just come and hang out. You know, they could plant stuff in the summertime and have a safe haven to just chill. Basically like an unorthodox orphanage. But where even youth that would get into trouble, get into smoking, drinking, drugs, they would have an option. They could say, I'm going to choose my life today, what I'm going to do. Am I going to go hang out? And once I've achieved where I need to be in life, spiritually, can I go out and reach others? Or are they going to make the choice to take that route into drugs or whatever? And you're telling me, oh, that's going to take a lot of money. I know probably a lot of people will combat this dream that I have. But that is a dream that I have because I have my good friend Artyom, who to this day we have such a phenomenal relationship. And if it hadn't been for me going there and me, you know, falling in love with helping these kids to see, you know, that even though life was not what they dreamed of, they could make their own dream. And, you know, today Artyom is in university, and I am just so proud of where he is because, you know, through many different challenges, he has just gone above and beyond and just pushed. And, you know, it makes me think, wow, what can I do to help him succeed in what he does, and how can I help other kids who want to do more but maybe don't have the resources, and I want to help them have the resources. Thank you for listening.